Welcome back, recruits. I'm Chris Nance with the Northern California Ghostbusters. Today we are going to be showing you how to wire in the lighting from a custom-made Clippard from RetroCraftBeards. Now, I'm actually going to be doing a little bit of soldering, and we're going to end up wiring this thing into the board of the stock HasLab. Yes, you heard that correct. Let's get going, recruits. We've already shown you how to replace the stock Clippard that's on the outside of the HasLab pack. It is not a very impressive looking fake Clippard, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to replace it. To achieve all of this, what we've done is we've taken the rumble motor out. Greg is not a big fan of the rumble motor. I don't get it, but different strokes for different folks, I guess. Because we've taken the rumble motor out, what that's given us is one free open 2-pin JST port on the board. Now, we've done a little bit of research behind the scenes already to kind of make sure that this is going to be a working little swap out. I am not 100% sure, but I am very confident that the output from that contact is does not go above the 5-volt maximum that the LED for RetroCraft's Clippard is going to max out at. Now, that power terminal for the rumble motor is also connected to the potentiometer that controls the volume on the sound in this. What that means is it has a wider range of voltage output that it sweeps across as it gets turned. By doing that, it increases the volume from the speaker and the vibration from the rumble motor that used to be in here. What that also means is it's going to cause Greg's custom Clippard
to variable in voltage, right?
To have some variable voltage, and it is designed to do that. It does have like a little bit of variation to its blinking animation according to the voltage input. So it should work out really nicely where we're swapping it into a spot where the Clippard's blink intensity will change with how high your volume is turned. Obvious and simple solution would be to crimp a 2-pin JST onto these wires. However, as I've noted already, we don't have enough length with this stock wire setup. And we do have the rumble motor here, which is already crimped together for us rather nicely. And I have a soldering iron. So
people are going to be so mad we ripped the rumble motor out of the pack. You destroyed the pack! You destroyed its initial value!
Snip, snip. Some wire trimmers. Scissors will do. Now, we really don't need a whole lot of extra length here, so it's pretty easy to just kind of, trim off like 6 inches. The real tricky part here is going to be getting these wires to separate for me. It's only tricky because I trim my nails.
What kind of tool is that?
This is a wire stripper. Now, if you're doing it like I am, this is a little tricky actually, because these stock wires here, there we go.
Everything's very dainty in the pack, unfortunately. The wires are very thin.
A little, kind of. It's not quite as thin as the wires on these Clippards. These are slightly heavier gauge than that, but they are definitely about the cheapest quality that you can get of that size. So that is a thinner wire gauge on the Clippard. However, what you'll notice is there's no exposed copper there, and that's because they're pre-tinned. They've already been coated in solder or solder-friendly material for us.
See, sorry guys, it's so dainty, I can barely get it to focus on the... They're so dainty. Look how small that gauge, there you go. Look how small that gauge is. And to compare it to the other gauge, the 20 gauge. Yeah, look at that. So 20 gauge on the left, Clippard wire on the right. It's like half the size.
Well, they back that up. There we go. To the soldering station. Soldering iron on, I'm gonna get it, it's like 480-ish. Which is still probably kind of overkill for what we're doing.
That's really high, yeah.
Yeah. And it's such small wiring, it really doesn't need that much, but what we have here are a set of what's called helping hands. They're just little standing clips that will sit and hold what you're working on while you work. I'm just trying to twist the two connections together. This is pretty difficult because the wiring itself is super tiny. It's where the helping hands are going to come in very, very handy. Since we're indoors, I'm also going to be using the fume sucker again, so it's going to get a little loud. So I have a pretty nice soldering iron setup where it actually has a little base station that gives me a fine control over the temperature that I'm using. You could do this very easily with just a $15 Home Depot soldering iron that plugs into the wall and has no direct control. It just gets hot. This is very, very simple stuff, and something like this is kind of unnecessary. Okay. That said, we just happen to have the nice stuff, so let's use the nice stuff. Just to help protect the whole wire, or to protect the join there. Because these wires are so fine, I would prefer to put heat shrink on this. These wires are so fine, I don't have any that fits. So we're gonna have to do the next best thing.
The Ghostbuster way of Jake.
Yeah. Well, I just repeated the same thing, the same step as before. I used the helping hands to hold the little wires just right against each other. So all I had to do was load some solder onto my soldering iron tip real quick, and then very, very carefully held it to the wiring until the wires came to temperature. And then once the wiring is hot, you could kind of see like the solder just sort of flows directly to it, almost like you're painting it on with a very fine little brush. So I know we've been saying, oh, these wires are so thin. That's actually a plus when it comes to sort of just doing these simple solders, because the wiring is so thin, it comes up to heat very quickly. So it didn't take very long for me to just kind of dab the solder right on, and it just flowed right into place very, very easily. And now, just doing the same thing I did on the positive there, because we don't have any heat shrink on hand. Now that everything is assembled as we want it, feed this wiring back through. Reattach the Clippard real quick. Just putting the bolts back on to hold everything for the Clippard back down. So we've got our 2-pin JST wired in. We're going to be plugging it into the board on the same port where the rumble motor was mounted. And because we're using the rumble motor's JST, it's going to fit.
There we go.
Mm-hmm. Voila. If you're like me and always forget this, do not forget that you have to have the cyclotron lid on for everything to turn on correctly. So, battery turned on, keep alive in place, and... Hey! And it works. Important things to note, because you are swapping this for the rumble motor, all of the hardware that exists, because we are just straight swapping it for the rumble motor, all of the existing hardware is going to now control this, not the rumble motor. So if you have your rumble motor switched off inside of the cyclotron, you're gonna have to turn it back on for this to turn on.
Same thing if you want it off.
Same thing if you want it turned off, yeah. And that is how you replace the Clippard with one of RetroCraftBeards' custom lighted Clippards. Thanks for watching. If you want a link to the product, it will be in the description below. And do not forget to smash that bell, hit the like and subscribe button, give us feedback, tell us what kind of parts you want to see us start modding on these things. Until next time, I'm Chris Nance with the Northern California Ghostbusters. See you later, recruits.